Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast today. I'm Shelby Jo Long. I'm Senior Vice President of the Strategic Advisor Board, and I am here to conduct interviews with geniuses who have transformed their ideas into a business to help inspire you to think about your business in a different way and think about your genius in a different way. And today is no exception. I'm excited to learn a little bit more about this story. Ira and I know each other through a mutual organization. We've met each other a couple of times, but I'm excited to hear more about Bowman Digital Media. So Ira, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you very much, Shelby. It is a pleasure to be here.
Let's start off by just telling us about you and tell us about your business, and then we'll dig into the foundation of things.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I won't tell you how it started then, because that's really an interesting story all by itself. So we'll save that for a second. But the company Bowman Digital Media is really in answer to business owners. A lot of my clients are smaller companies, some mid-sized companies, but we don't work with enterprises. Not that we wouldn't, but this is just who we tend to target and gear better towards. But the goal is simple. They're obscure online. You can't find them in Google. You can't find them on social media. How do they go from this obscure place to being seen and generating a rapport, and then of course getting web traffic? Well, we provide 6 services that do that. The main 2 being social media management and SEO, right? To help boost the position on Google. Now we also do photography, we do videography, graphic design, and website development for our clients who are just starting and don't have a website. But we do those 6 services for them so that they can focus on the things that they're good at. They're an accountant, they're a chef, they're an attorney. Most of our clients are service-based, but we have like print shops. We have a couple recycling centers, or what you might think of as like a garbage dump, right? But for commercial recycling centers, I have 2 of those, believe it or not, clients. We work with a lot of coaches and authors and people like that, but that's really the crux of it. They're busy doing what they're best at, and they hire us to do the things like, run their LinkedIn, but they're not that good at.
Yeah. I mean, we're just not, and we need we can stay in our genius zone if we have somebody else, other geniuses doing that job for us.
100%. And I'm no different. Look, the first thing I did when I launched Bowman Digital Media was hire an accountant and a lawyer, because I wasn't good at those things, right? So recognizing your genius or the things that you're passionate about, and recognizing the things that you're not as good or don't want to be good at, it can be helpful. Yeah,
exactly. I think also what interests me too is that, I mean, it seems like you, sir, your packages and what you offer is for a small business or a startup business that is ready to grow. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I was actually just talking to one of my clients who's a business coach earlier today. We have a weekly call, and he and I had never actually talked about that. He goes, "So what is it that, you love about your business?" And I said, "Look, point blank, I like taking or helping a small business owner go from where they are to helping fulfill their dream. We implement a strategy that helps them go from where they are to where they want to be." I have always, even when I was in the print business, and I was in the print business for 20 years, when I was in the print business, I always gravitated towards the smaller, medium-sized business owners, because I had ideas on what they could do if they hired us to grow their business. So that's always been something that I have been passionate about, is helping the small business owner gain revenue.
Absolutely. Let's the other thing before we dig into your background before digital media, I wanted to ask I wanted to comment on how you provide a multitude of services, that you're not just your SEO, photography, there's all design, there's all sorts of different things. I think that is also so helpful for small business owners, so they don't have to piece together everything, and you have it all kind of under one roof. I think that's really great.
Yeah, we could talk about how I came up with those, but the idea for me, it was a win-win idea. I thought, when I was setting up my business, I was like, okay, these are the things that I needed when I was getting going, but also, markets shift.
Sure.
Trends change, and I didn't want to create a business that was, say, just on photography. Look, I'm a professional photographer. I take photos all the time. Love it, right? But what if the market photography gets so saturated that I can't get work? or I can't get enough work to sustain the company and grow, which I want to continue to grow. So whether it was social media management, SEO, or any of the other things, photography, the thing I probably love the most right now is photography, right? But graphic design, actually, I've been doing graphic design longer than any of them. But
Yeah,
through all of it, I thought it can not only be a suite of services that is helpful, but it can help insulate me from being obscure or obsolete.
absolutely.
There was a two-way thought process there.
Absolutely. Let's talk about, I want to, you refer to it a couple times in the
Yeah.
print media and all that. Tell us about your foundation. Tell us about how you,
Yeah.
I love the point where we go from what we did in the past to I'm going to start a business and do my own thing. So tell us about your, tell us
Yeah.
about your background.
And it ties in so well with the genius that you're talking about, right? Which is a fun way to say it. But okay, so I was married at 23 years old, and I always wanted to be in sales, but I wasn't in sales yet. My wife was a hairdresser, and she introduced me to somebody who got me into sales. Turns out it was in the print business. Now, I didn't set out to find the print business. The print business found me. Okay.
Right.
But as it turns out, it was a happy marriage. I loved it. I loved the freedom and the creativity and again, helping people. In the beginning, I was working with architects, engineers, and construction companies primarily. A lot of those independent business owners, small, medium-sized companies, they were employing people. I helped them to be more financially stable by fixing the way they were doing their large format printing. In one situation, just as an example, they were spending over $1 million a year on getting their large format plans produced. And I was able to shrink that number down by over 6 figures. So that
Oh, wow.
savings helped them employ more people. You see what I mean? And that's the kind of thing that I was doing. Then in 2000, I think it was 8 or so, I switched gears and I got into the graphic side of the printing. So I was now, instead of just selling the equipment, I was selling the output too. Well, as part of output, you need print files. Some of these small business owners just didn't have, they wanted the print work done, but they didn't have the file to print. Turns out you had to pay people to do that then. Well, I was
Yeah.
losing orders. So I learned how to create files so that I could get the sale. I could complete the transaction without them having to spend more money than just the print process. So that's how I got my feet wet. Well, fast forward to 2020 and a lot of years of graphic design in between. With COVID, I had moved out to Southern California for a job. 5 months after I moved out here, COVID was rampant. And the industry that I was printing mostly for at that point was hospitality and entertainment, right? So events,
Sure.
that was all gone.
Shut
And
down.
so my job went away. I got laid off. First time in my whole life I had been laid off. So I had a decision to make. At that point, it was like, what do I do? Do I move? Well, we had already just moved, and my family, frankly, was tired of moving. And I had a non-compete.
Moving's not fun.
Yeah, I had a non-compete in the print industry. So it's like, even if I could find another print vendor to hire me, I would be
Right.
sued. I would be sued. So
Right.
I was in this weird spot. Well,
Oh, that's
it-
terrible.
this was all
But
happening.
opportunity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was all happening in 2020, right? So in May of 2018, I had a conversation with a guy on social media because in sales, I was up in the Bay Area at the time, and a lot of the businesses are not, you can't just walk in. You had to get buzzed in by security, and it was getting harder and harder, even in 2018, to get, those people who didn't know you to buzz you in.
Yeah.
So I started to understand that I needed to grow my social media presence, but I didn't necessarily know how to do it. But I was talking to a guy that I was connected to about how LinkedIn works. And if you're not familiar with this story, go watch my first TEDx, because I explain the story in spades for those of you. But, I learned the importance of first, second, and third level connections on LinkedIn. So I decided to do something that most people don't do, and that was become an open networker on LinkedIn. What does that mean? It means I was going to be willing to accept strangers' connections. And I know we think stranger danger, but I tell that whole story. But through this process from 2018 to 2020, I went from 1,500 connections on LinkedIn to the maximum, which is 30,000, but I also had 150,000 total followers. So I went from obscurity to having this flamethrower, if you will.
Yeah.
to be able to put out a message and have it be seen by quite a few people. Posts would be seen over 1 million, 2 million views at a time. It was a good apparatus, if you will, to get a
Yeah.
message out. So when I got laid off, the minute I got laid off, okay, actually, I need to back up just one step. I missed an important step. In 2018, I launched a nonprofit called Project Help You Grow. Now, Project Help You Grow is still around. It's been around now for 5 years. And our goal there is to help connect job seekers with employers who are hiring. It's all done for free, but it's a website. Well, because it's a website and it's free, I needed to learn a way to get the website to be seen by a lot of people. So this growth on social media was important, but also it threw me down the path of learning about SEO. Now you see why I had to back up, because
Sure.
this is how it all enters the fray. Okay, so at this point, graphic design, social media, website development, and SEO were all things that I was working on. But I was working on as a hobby or as side projects, not as my main, that's not how I was making my living. Had no
Right.
intention of doing any of that, frankly, for a living. Just, was doing it for, well, the social media was to gain more sales calls. So that was for a living, but not the social media as a service, just social media as a tool to gain visibility, so that these architects and the people would who didn't know me would take my call. So,
Right.
and it did work. It helped me increase sales from 2018 to 2020. I made more sales because of social media than I did because of in-person cold calls. So it was effective.
I love the analogy about how, you ring the doorbell and nobody would let you in.
Yeah.
And I like that analogy a lot, because we don't think about it as having like, that's the first place people go to see who you are, is social media, is LinkedIn,
Right.
especially in the professional world. And if that's not up to speed, we really have to pay attention to that.
It's a big thing. And so when I first started doing it, okay, I was making on average from 20 to 35 cold calls a day in person. My bosses were used to that. When I switched over and I stopped making all those calls, it happened really fast. And I got a call from my boss one day in 2018, and he goes, "Ira, what's wrong?" Because, he's so used to the way I work, and you know what I mean? So he noticed I was still at home, and he called me. It was like 1 o'clock. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm making cold calls." And he goes, "What do you mean you're at home?" And I go, "I know, I'm doing it on social media." And he goes, "I don't understand." And I said, "But you will. Just watch my sales funnel, because it's not going to go down. It's actually going to go up." Right. And so I was learning how to do it, and I had figured it out, and I just needed, like the world to kind of catch up. So I was ahead of the curve there, but I did, I had to fight some resistance along the way, and I had to prove it that it would work. But anyways, in 2020, the moment, it's kind of funny, but it's true. The moment that I was laid off, I was actually on a Zoom call with my friend, Joe Stepke, who is known as Joe, the finance guy. Joe had been trying to get me to build a website for this guy, like a side project, for over a year. And I was like, I don't have time, So at the moment that I was laid off, I actually had just earlier that day met with a large county where I live on a RFQ. And it was going to be a 6-figure RFQ. And I think, they gave me the verbal in the meeting. So when I got a call from my boss that day, who ended up laying me off, I actually thought he was going to pat me on the back and say, "Attaboy," right? I told Joe, I said, "This is just gonna be like a 30-second call. He's going to congratulate me for a job well done. And, it'll be fast," because it was like 5:30 at night on a Friday. So he calls me and he says, "I got bad news. I'm going to have to lay you off." And I was like, "Oh, right." Well, my friends,
After you just close that deal.
this is on speakerphone on my cell phone, and my friends on Zoom. It was really awkward. Anyways, when that conversation was over, he says, "Ira, I hate to be trite, but it sounds like you might have some free time. Can you build my website?" And it's funny, that timing probably changed my whole life, because
Right.
I told him I would do it. Of course, we came up to a price, and I told him I'd do it. He Venmoed me that same night. He's like, "I don't want him to back out," right? he's going to build me this site for this really cheap price. So I did. It was my first commercial site. It's called Joe the Finance Guy. If you guys want to check it out, it's still live. But the fact is, I took the information that I wasn't expecting to my wife and said, hey, this is what happened and I don't know what to do. And I said, hey, but Joe just paid me to build a website. And later that night is really where the idea for Bowman Digital Media came to, right? This like epiphany. It's like, hey, instead of having one job, which has always been where, now we haven't talked about this, but I'm married and I have 8 kids. Okay.
Yeah,
So
you do have a lot of kids.
yeah. So I
Big
never
family.
thought that I would be the business owner because I didn't think I was going to be able to afford the ramp up period. Right. I didn't think I was going to be able to afford the investment to get going and then the ramp up period. And, I know you can borrow money and all these things, but, I don't like to be in debt. So I'm like a Dave Ramsey kind of thought guy there. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I said to her was really radical. And when I said it out of my mouth, I couldn't believe I was saying it, but it really was an epiphany. There's this thing called fractional work. Fractional work is where you, instead of having a job, you become a big business owner, LLC, and you 1099 contract labor, but you don't do it for just one person or one entity. You do like spokes on a wheel, 6 services at Bowman Digital Media, not just one. It's the same idea. You get income coming from multiple sources like passive income, but this is active hours income. Okay. But then if any one of those leave, and I've had many customers come and go over the years, but at the time I was thinking, if I could get my income to be from at least 4 different sources, 25% or less from each source, if any one of those ever leave, I'm not hurt. And so I tried to explain this to my wife, and my wife said, yeah, I don't like that. Go get a job. But I said, well, I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to think about it, but I think I'm going to do it. Right. So at the end of the weekend, I had decided, and I launched Bowman Digital Media that Monday. Right. I launched the paperwork for the LLC. I paid like $600. So anyways, this whole transition from employee to employer, business owner happened over a weekend in my mind. It was relatively quick, but it was, you say genius, that's the word. It really was a very smart thing to do. And only by the grace of God was I on that call, like I said, with my friend Joe, because I don't think the idea would have came to me. But that Monday, I'll tell you what, that Monday I made a post and I said, imagine if you had 150,000 followers at your disposal on LinkedIn, what you could do and how your company would benefit from that. Now I said, imagine you don't have to build it. You could just plug into mine and utilize mine to help. I had my phone ringing off the hook that day from small business owners going, I would love to talk to you about this. Now, did they all sign? No, right? I still had to figure out a lot of things, pricing and, how I was going to implement the services. And, that's all morphed over time. I'd like to say it's gotten better, right? But anyways, that's where it all came from. That's the genesis, but it came from building up this unintentional apparatus. I didn't build it for the purpose that it's being used for, but it was fortuitous to say the least.
Just what's the word? Serendipity.
Yeah.
There's a serendipitous moment there that it was almost this, I talk about this too. It's like there's a forced transition in your life. Like you've got to figure something out.
Yeah.
And then this kind of landed and configured as at that opportunity just presented itself. And I think you resonate with all those themes of like the challenges of entrepreneurship. And I really think that having multiple streams of income, that's what I work with people on too, is like, you can have a book, but it's a really good idea to have a digital course to go with it. And then e-commerce store, like think about all these things working together and how they can all help each other. I think it's a great business plan. So.
I love the idea of the digital course. I know that's one of the things that you do, and I'll be talking to you about this because I have been running an internship program for a little over a year now, and I just decided with this last iteration to record them all. So I've got them recorded, and I'm going to be putting out an SEO course. And so I will, and you and I will be talking about that later because we already had a talk about this last week. So we're gonna make that happen. I think it's super smart, right? The books, the course, the whole, now that's my lane. Everybody's got lanes, but I like the word adapting. I was able to adapt to the circumstances. And I wrote a blog about fractional work back in 2019. So I'd already known the concept of fractional work, but I never thought it was going to be my reality. Now it's funny how that came to fruition. Like I was, foreshadowing my future.
And now you probably couldn't envision yourself working for somebody else.
Yeah, it's funny. I think about that every once in a while, especially with C-suite jobs that come along. Now I run a job board, Project Help You Grow. I see the jobs. In fact, every job that's on ZipRecruiter is on Project Help You Grow. We have an API key and they pump them in, and they take our jobs and they pump them to them. So we do kind of exchange there. That's funny. They wanted my foreign jobs. They didn't have foreign jobs. They wanted my foreign jobs. So they traded me. Some of those I look at them and I wonder if I would be happy. But then I was talking about this even with my wife earlier today. I'm like, what would that really mean? That would mean me back in an office, as a salaried employee, upper management, you're working 60, 70 hours a week. You don't have the freedom to do any of the things I have the freedom. I could travel whenever I want now.
Yeah.
If I want to take the day off and go see something with my kids, I can do that. For 20 years, I was a ghost in the house because I was out there working. If the sun was up, it was a work day, man, I was working. I worked a lot of hours, but I don't regret it, but I don't know that I would want to go back to that corporate lifestyle. It would take a lot. It would take a really strong offer for me to consider it. Yeah.
I think I feel that theme resonates with a lot of entrepreneurs. So
there is something nice about the prestige of working for a larger company. Don't get me wrong. I mean, this is it. It's the pay and the prestige. I was talking to Nathaniel Holzman of Low Code Road today about people who work at NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA used to be my next door neighbor when I was doing this up in the Bay Area in Santa Clara. I worked right next door to NVIDIA. And I have an NVIDIA graphics card in my computer. Is why this came up. But anyways, the director of marketing role is someone that we were looking at on LinkedIn because there was a question about it. And I said, it's funny, those types of jobs can totally change your prestige on LinkedIn because the recognizable company that you work for just kind of elevates you, gives you status.
Sure.
Think about people that work for Facebook or Google or LinkedIn or any of these large companies, Tesla, whatever, you name it, right? It seems to get more precedence than somebody who owns their own Bowman Digital Media, right? Like, oh, you just work for Bowman Digital Media. Nobody says it like that, but it's in their mind. It's a small business. I get it, right? But working for corporate has its trade-offs because, again, you can be laid off at any time. I was not laid off because of poor performance. I promise you, right?
Right.
If anybody knows me for any amount of time at all, they know one thing about me. I work hard, right? Long hours, right? And I try to be smart about the way I work, right? Results matter. I'm in marketing. I look at data all day long. But that would be, if there was a reason for me to go back to corporate life, it would have to do with a little bit of the prestige and a little bit of the compensation package would have to have some perks in it that I'm not giving myself now.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, Ira, what would you say to the want to be entrepreneur out there that might be thinking about making that transition? We've talked a lot about the benefits of entrepreneurship, but there's a lot of downsides too. It's challenging. You don't know, but sometimes it's paycheck to paycheck at the beginning. There's not a ton of consistency. So what would you say to the entrepreneur that might be thinking about that?
Well, I would say a lot. In fact, I would encourage them to just call me because there's a lot there, right? And I'm one of those guys that I would be happy to talk to them. But as a general rule, I would say this: the first couple of years is going to probably be tough. Right. So, if you don't have a 24 endurance race in 24-month endurance race in you, you don't have the energy or the mentality. Like I can't endure hard times for 24 months, at least, probably not for you. And that's okay. Here's what I would recommend instead. Then go find a captain's chair, because these guys who are going with the entrepreneurships, they have big visions, but sometimes implementing the visions can be tough. So you can find somebody who's got big visions and needs a right-hand person to captain the ship and work symbiotically with them and helping. So if you're good at processes, but not good at vision, and you're okay not necessarily having your name at the head of the marquee, but being the number 2 slot, right? That's a place to be.
Right.
But if they do have the ambition to be an entrepreneur, here's what I would say. Make sure that whatever your product, solution, service is going to be, has a real commercial demand. So in other words, there's a problem that exists today that your service or your product, your solution is going to adequately address, and do it in a way that's financially at least the same, but probably should be a little bit less expensive, right? So if you could be almost like a new substitute good, that's a great spot to be. But it's tough if you have to break in, like as an entrepreneur, if you're trying to break into a brand new market where there's no established need, that's going to be tough, right? So especially if you're bootstrapping, let's talk about the difference between bootstrapping and well-funded, because that makes a huge difference too, right? So if you're going in and you've got no loan, no grant, no deep, well to tap into, you better have this part figured out. I have a solution to an existing problem and I know how I'm going to sell it. That was one advantage that I had over almost everybody going into this, is I was already good at marketing and sales. So I didn't need to hire anybody to help me with that. If you're really good at the solution, but you don't know how to sell to save your life, then you might want to go in with a partner and not do this as a solopreneur. You might want to find what we call a JV or joint venture. Okay. And tap into a group. Somebody really has to be a good mouthpiece for your company, and they need to have some visibility. Okay. I didn't have to spend any money on marketing. I'm telling you, that's a huge advantage. You won't know until you know, and then you'll realize what I mean. Like it is a big deal. It's a big chunk of a lot of people's when they start. That's a big chunk of what they normally have to spend. I didn't have to spend it. Okay. And I'm not trying to brag. That's where I was at.
Right.
So, what's your marketing plan? What's the demographics? Get the demographics down, understand where they are. I call it the headache and the Advil. You can call it whatever you want. The aspirin is probably a better way to say it these days, but I used to take Advil when I had headaches. So
yeah,
I used to call it Advil. But the Advil or the aspirin is what you're selling. And it becomes easy to sell it if there's a need for it and if there's a want for it. More so a want than a need, honestly. People need to eat vegetables and drink milk, do they? Not so much. But they want cigarettes and alcohol, and they get those they'll find a way to get those. If you understand what I'm saying, you get it. They built a city called Las Vegas. I grew up there, but based on wants, not needs, right? So you just have to understand that. I think if a person has a commercially viable solution that they can price, that's market friendly, and they know how to sell it, and they're like I said, you're going to get punched. I don't care who you are. As an entrepreneur, I've never talked to any of them that had an easy sledding. It's always a fight, and you're going to there's people that are going to try to steal your ideas. There's people that are going to come in and maybe try to steal your clients. There's going to be people that your closest friends and family are all going to look at you and go, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. That's not who you are. You're Ira, the print sales guy. You're not in digital media. I got my press credential. I had somebody in my family tell me I hadn't even graduated college. You know what I mean? It's like they think they know you, but they don't really know who you are becoming. They only know what, wherever it was, in their mind, you're still 12 or something. So you're going to have a lot of hurdles to jump, and everybody's hurdles are probably going to be a little bit different. But if you're not up for that kind of a fight, if you're not stubborn son of a gun, you probably don't want to do entrepreneurship. What I would say, if you're not sure, is start yourself out with a side hustle. Yep. Because then you still have income coming in.
People all the time too.
Yeah.
Right.
Side hustles are low risk because, and I did that in 2019. Honestly, I was doing LinkedIn coaching and I didn't even want to do it.
Yeah.
Because I had went from 1,500 people in May of 2018 to 100,000 people by February of 2019. I grew so fast that people were throwing money at me to teach them what I was doing so that they could emulate it. Yeah. Right. And so I was doing that on Saturdays, and I made a lot of money on Saturdays. It was great.
That's awesome.
But you know what I mean? That gave me, again, some confidence when I said, hey, instead of getting a job, I'm going to launch Bowman Digital Media. That was one of the things I was thinking about over that weekend was, I can sell my services,
Yeah.
you know? So anyways, that's what I would tell entrepreneurs. It's the industry that you're looking to do. Like if I wanted to launch a print shop, why not a print shop, Ira? Why digital media? Well, one of the reasons why is that print equipment would have been expensive. And I would have to put it in some building somewhere. Can't go in my house. And I would have had to have a staff to run it. So I was looking at millions of dollars of liability
Right.
versus something. And let's just be clear. When I launched Bowman Digital Media, I did it for $3,000. I needed to buy a new computer, an LLC, and a little bit of software. And I bought a new camera, DSLR, because I wasn't going to do photography work with my phone. Right. So that's what I needed to start. And then from there, obviously, I invested as my business grew. We broke 6 figures our first year, which was pretty good. Right.
That's good.
It was good. It was a good model. It worked out pretty good. So 6 figures of income in the first year. Not everybody will do that. In fact, I had a lot of people tell me a lot of times you don't see real profits for 5 years. But again, that just depends on the industry you're in. I happen to be in an industry where a lot of it is it's intellectual, right?
Yep.
Intellectual. So there's not a lot of overhead. There's not a lot of fixed asset costs to buy in. One of the reasons why I bought software from Low Code Road was to help increase the book value of my business. I bought custom software to help increase my the book value of Bowman Digital Media.
Sure. Making smart investments, also weighing all those options. There's so many good pieces of advice for entrepreneurs out there that might be thinking about it. And even if you are scared to do it, try a side hustle and see if that resonates, and it might fulfill a need that you might be looking for and not.
If you can't make your side hustle work, the odds of you making your business, full-time business work is very slim, because again, the pressure that comes with it, it's like stepping off a cliff. If you've never gone skydiving or cliff diving, I've never been skydiving, but I have been cliff diving. I've jumped off a cliff 20 feet into some water down below. And I'll tell you, it's exhilarating and scary as hell all at the same time. But if you can handle that jump, then there's a good shot that you'll be able to handle the bigger jump. But if you can't handle that little jump, it's probably not for you. And I'm not, look, not everybody can be a professional pianist or basketball player or whatever, you know what I mean? There's no shame in being a full-time employee and being a darn good department manager. And like I said, if you like the idea of entrepreneurship, but you don't have the risk tolerance, or you can't handle it by yourself, you can go try to find yourself a general manager spot or director of operations spot for any one of these entrepreneurs that have multiple businesses. They need good people.
Sure.
When I'm doing my internship program, I'm looking for 2 types of people. I'm looking for people that want to get into entrepreneurship themselves. Why do I like to train them? First of all, I like the legacy that it creates because I'm getting to help shape the future. Also, I'm looking for business partners. We call it white label in marketing, but outside vendors that when you have overflow or something that doesn't quite fit you, people you can send it to. I know that I can trust them because I train them. So I know their mindset, right? But then the other kind of people that I'm looking for are the ones that don't have entrepreneur spirit at all. They're just looking for work. Well, I train them in my internship program, and then I hire them at $15 an hour to work for me, and they're happy for that.
Very similar to my model.
Yeah, I'm looking for 2 different types of people. I help people that are straight out of college. I'm right next to a junior college. So I have a deal with them where I help teach and advise their digital marketing. I'm one of their advisors for their curriculum.
That's
and
great.
I go there on career day and I talk to the kids, but I get a lot of those kids to join my internship program. And some of them, they're just looking for the $15 an hour job. And others are like, I want to be like you. I want to be an influencer, or I want to be a, videographer or whatever. It's like, cool. Let me show you what I know. And you take that with your youthful energy and creativity, and let's see how far you can take it. And then at Project Help You Grow, I became aware of this epidemic called ageism, right? Where people in their 50s, 60s are having trouble getting a job because, whatever reason, medical and health insurance, those kinds of things. So I have those people coming into my internship program too, to learn new skills so that
Sure.
they can, re-enter the workforce, 15 bucks an hour, 20 bucks an hour, 30 bucks an hour, whatever they can command from wherever they go, but with a new skill set, and they can extend their
Absolutely.
career as opposed to being a greeter at Walmart.
Well, I think that sounds a lot better than being a greeter at Walmart.
I haven't had any complaints about it yet, right? The
Yeah,
people that come in, their number one thing usually is they don't know the technology.
right.
They're intimidated by the technology, but I'm like, look, one thing that's happening right now is technology is getting easier and easier and easier to use across the board. So it used to be that these programs, video programs and graphic design programs, were really hard to use. But now, shoot, I don't use Canva, but one of my daughter uses Canva, the pro version of Canva. She doesn't even use Photoshop 9 months out of the year because she's in school, and only when she's home on summer break does she actually
Yeah,
use Photoshop. The rest of the year, when she's making graphics for Bowman Digital Media, she's using Canva.
sure.
And Canva is
I
really
know a
easy.
lot of people that do, for
Yeah,
sure.
Canva is a really easy, usy tool. There's video program tools out there like Filmora.
Yep.
Enters my mind. Filmora is simple to use. I forget what version they're on now, 12 or 13 or 14 or something. But anyways, it's simple to use. Of course, if you want to use some of
Exposures to
the,
it.
yeah, if you want to use some of the more complicated programs, it might take you a little bit, but I'll tell you what, if a person wants to learn, uh, I could take them from no experience to fully trained intern in 3 months.
I think there's an academy we got to start for you. I like the idea of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to talk to you about those things because, like I said,
Yeah,
again, when
that's
you're
awesome.
looking at fractional work and you're looking at entrepreneurs, you shouldn't be focused on just one revenue stream. That's one of the things that I would tell all of them. Like, look for multiple streams because sometimes the revenue streams do dry up, and or in a recession like we're heading into, right? Some would say we're already there. Yeah, economic models change. So
For
just
sure.
because you're making 10 grand a month doing this activity doesn't mean you will make that same 10 grand next month. You might make 12, you might make 20, but you also might make 6 or 4, you know?
Right.
So having multiple straws in different bodies of water will help you continue to fill up your buckets and your gallons and your storage tanks. Hopefully you make so much money that you don't have to worry about it, but that's a good problem. But
That's a good problem.
those are the advice. That's the type of advice that I would give to people who want to be entrepreneur. And here's another one. This term called utilize other people's tracks. So you don't have to be good at everything. Like, remember when I said when I launched Bowman Digital Media, I knew immediately I wasn't going to do the books and I wasn't going to be the legal representation for the company, right? I knew that right out of the bat. But I'll tell you that I've also learned that these interns and people that I can hire, maybe they're not as good a graphic designer as me. In fact, I would say none of them that I hire are as good as me. The videographers, probably not as good as me, although there's a little bit of debate there, right? Photography, all of it can be done by other people. Maybe they're not as good as you, but you can hire them and get that work off of your plate. They can do it for a lower price point, and it frees you up to do other things like sleep. So
Absolutely.
don't be afraid as a small business owner to start figuring out ways to bring people on your team. The internship program that I run was directly an answer to that need. I needed talent. I didn't have the revenue to afford the salary. So I was like, all right, I started with 1099 work, labor, 1099 labor, because 1099 labor, if there's no project, there's no expense. So it was great, right? Invoices go out, and then I would hire the 1099 and, it was paid for that way. But then I got the idea for the internship program, and the internship program, I'm trading them. I'll just be completely open with you guys. 10 hours of labor a week for 1 hour of training time. That's what the internship program I have. They don't pay anything to participate. They just trade me 10 hours of labor. They have homework and they're working on things that help them. So I
Yeah.
give them, I teach them a lesson for 1 hour, and then I give them homework that correlates. It goes with the lesson, so they get to practice it and develop their skills. So it actually works out great. They help me. They're taking work off the plate of Bowman Digital Media, and they get the education. When they're done, they have experience on the resume. I give them a recommendation. Hey, they passed my internship program. I know who they are. I can attest to their work, right? And so it's a good thing. So there are
So, like a
solutions.
true educator.
Yeah, and there's a solution for everybody. Your business owner gets what they need. The people out of work or out of school or still in school get the experience they need. It's a win-win, right?
Absolutely.
So there are solutions to almost every problem if you're creative. And if you're not creative, you probably don't want to be an entrepreneur.
Right. Or they could call you and talk to you about it, because I think you are a
Yeah.
wealth of information, and there's been so many great nuggets in this interview today. So
No, I'm glad to share. Thank you for having
yeah.
me.
And I feel that I'm so excited to explore the internship stuff, but then you gave some really good advice. You don't have to be an entrepreneur, but there is a path to it. And there are things that you can do to take some of that off your plate and also be successful. And you can dip your toes in and then you can go full, whatever you want to do. It's just, there's different methods for that.
Yeah, your side hustle, and or if you want to just fully immerse into being an entrepreneur, here's one last suggestion, unless you ask me another question. But the last suggestion I would have is this: make sure you love it, you're passionate about it, because it will, for probably 24 months, consume most of your life, right? It's all consuming. You're going to eat it, sleep it, drink it, breathe it, all of it. You're probably going to irritate some of your family because you're not going to be as present for a while, but they just have to understand you're trying to set a foundation. You have to front load this thing a lot, especially if you're bootstrapping. When you have money, it's a little bit different, right? You can hire people right away and you can buy some of the things you need right away. But when you're bootstrapping entrepreneur, 24 months is probably conservative number. You might even need 36 months. But if you love it, it'll be easier. And if you hate it or you're ambivalent to it, right, you probably won't be successful. Because one thing I will tell you, you can talk to me about graphic design, you can talk to me about website development, SEO, photography, videography. You'll see a smile on my face and a passion in my eyes. And I don't have to tell you I love it. You can sense it. So whatever that is for you.
That's inspiring for our audience to hear someone who's transformed their passion and their genius into a business. And I think that is a pretty inspiring message. So thank you for sharing all those ideas with us today, Ira.
It's my pleasure. Like I said, you unwind me, I'll go and go and go.
Where can our audience find you? I mean, I'm assuming LinkedIn.
Yeah. So LinkedIn is actually not the necessarily best place to find me, although it's easy to find me, only because everybody wants to connect and I can't. I'm maxed out. LinkedIn has that 30,000 connection limit. Now I follow everybody back. So if you follow me, I won't be antisocial, and you can send me a message even though we're not connected because I've opened that up, right? I have a premium account, and so I let everybody message me. But if you want to find me, the two easiest places to find me, irabowman.com is my photography site. So it's just my name.com. That's easy. My business name, Bowman Digital Media, which is over my shoulder. That's bowmandigitalmedia.com, so you can find me there. I'll tell you a social media platform you guys might not have heard of yet, but I'm actually a brand ambassador for it because I love it. It's called OWL. It's OWWLL. And you can talk to me for 10 minutes for $1. It's a 10-minute call. And if you want to talk to me for 30 minutes, it's $3. You know what I mean? It's $10. It's $1 for every 10 minutes. Now I could raise my price, but I've left it there. I love it because when I'm on, you don't have to have an appointment. You can just call. And like yesterday, you remember William Hung from American Idol? She Bang. I talked to him yesterday. He's on the app. I posted about him, the call on Instagram and Facebook, and he shared it. Right. And, I was able to actually connect him with an agent, a friend of mine in Nashville, because he's still in that world, but he doesn't have representation. So I'm like, hey, if you're looking for somebody to book gigs for you, and that's how I am with people. Like when they call me and we talk, I try to connect them to other people that I know that might be able to help them out. That's just, the social media part. So if you're looking for me and you want to actually talk to me, that is the easiest way. Unless you're my friend, Shelby has my cell phone number. She can just call me.
Yes. Text you for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, Ira, thank you for all of your wisdom, and thank you for your story and for inspiring our audience to think about differently about their expertise and how they
Yeah, I
can.
hope I made them think today. And I
I
don't want to discourage anybody. Hopefully, if you heard me, you're not discouraged. Chase it. I just given you hopefully some cautionary things, right? Passion. Think about how the solution to what you're gonna, you know what I mean? Because that's what a lot of people when they get into this, they don't think about the other side of it, right? Like the other people don't care that you're a new business. They just care they've got a problem with their business they need to resolve or at their house, right? You need a plumber, you need a beautician, whatever it is, you need that thing, then you need it. If you don't need it, then it doesn't matter how much they like you, they're not going to hire you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for visiting and having this discussion. I think it was very valuable for our audience. And I look forward to hosting someone else to talk about how to transform their genius into an income stream or multiple income streams, because you can do it too. And
Yeah.
you can start small and build up, or you can go all in, whatever your passion is, but you'll be a whole lot more fulfilled in your life. So we'll see you next time.